Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Shutterbug Club. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm your host, Sue, and this last week I actually did something really exciting that I've never done before. I photographed one of my best friend's proposals. It was a surprise proposal, and I actually helped her boyfriend set it up. We had been talking with each other for like 2 weeks, setting this up, and I am shocked that we were able to keep it from her. Like, we both almost slipped up a couple times, but basically, I set up this super cute picnic with like pillows, a blanket, a table, and a cake that said "Marry Me." I actually baked the cake for her myself, and I set this picnic up at the location where they had their first ever date. So it was on a hike, and at the top of the hike, it was a beautiful outlook over a lake. And so it was a really pretty location and where they had had their first date, so it was really special. And she just thought she was going on another regular hike with her boyfriend. And I had this little area set up, and then I hid in the bushes while I waited for them to come. And she was so shocked. Like, I thought we had ruined the surprise, but yeah, it went so good. And I'm probably gonna make a behind the scenes video sharing the experience because it was really fun to get to do that for her. And yeah, it was really special. So let's get into this episode. I want to say welcome back to my book club. We are going to be talking about a book today. We're actually going to dive into the same book that I talked about in a previous episode. It's called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And in a previous episode, I talked about how this book relates to community over competition in the photography industry. Well, today we're going to be talking about how being a giver is actually the secret to a thriving business. And we're going to talk specifically about a photography business, but this doesn't have to just be photography. This can relate to any kind of business. You can take away the things that we talk about today and put it into any type of business. I'm going to be sharing with you some personal stories that have happened to me and just talking about how being a giver will help your business thrive. It will lead to raving clients. So, clients that cannot shut up about your business because they are just super fans. They love everything about you, your business, your brand, everything you've built. We're going to talk about how to create those clients and then also how to get endless reviews for your business, which will bring in new clients. We're also going to talk about how to deal with difficult clients in ways that you can be a giver and deal with a difficult client that will lead to future success in your business. So, just a little recap on this book, Give and Take. This book by Adam Grant basically talks about how there are three types of people. There are givers, takers, and matchers. And givers are people who are motivated by helping others. They want to lift others up and bring as much value as they can. Takers are motivated by their own self-interests. So they just care about power and they want everyone to think that they are just the best, so great, and they don't really care about how they affect other people. And then matchers are basically the kind of people who love a balance between give and take. They try and keep everyone in check and they don't want to give any more than they take, but they also want to balance other people. So if somebody's a taker, then they get really mad at this taker and they feel like the taker should not have the things that they have. And then if somebody is a giver, then the matcher will want to give back to the giver because they see that the giver is giving so much of themselves that they will want to give some to the giver to kind of equalize things out. I hope that made sense. But this is an incredible book, and it just talks about how the difference between being a giver, a taker, or a matcher depends or leads to, I should say, the success of your business. So, how it will influence the success that you can have. We're going to talk a little bit about networking, which I've mentioned before. Networking is one of the best things you can do for your business. And this is basically just building relationships with others. And givers actually excel at building and maintaining networks because they just genuinely care about helping others. Now, I do want to say that the positive effects of giving might not always be obvious right away. So keep that in mind when we talk about some of the topics that we go into today. First, we're going to talk about the different ways you can give to your clients that will create super fans, that will create these clients that just rave about your business and love everything you do, and in return leads to endless referrals. So this will really help the success of your business if you can create these type of clients that continue to talk about your business and spread the word. This is basically like word of mouth marketing. So think about the client experience when you're thinking about how to build a super fan or a raving client. You want to constantly think about how can I provide the most value for my client every step of the way. So this is also known as like the client journey, and this is every point of communication that the client has with your business. So when they first reach out, but during the photo shoot, after the photo shoot, how you follow up with them, how you deliver the photos. And this can even go as far as to when they first see your business. Maybe it's on social media or when they first hear about it. That is when your client journey starts. And you want to think about how you can provide the most amount of value through every step of the client journey. So, first, we're going to talk about how you can provide value when a client first reaches out to you, how you can be a giver to your client. The first thing you can do is provide some kind of free resource. So this could be a style guide, posing tips, or location recommendations. And if you send this during the early stages of communication, maybe this is before your client even books with you, if you just provide some kind of value to them, they're going to want to work with you more because you're already giving them something and they haven't even paid you yet. So this already starts to build a really strong relationship and connection with your client when you start off by just providing them with something. And I actually even try to provide value to the people who don't end up booking with me. So if I get somebody and it's just not a good fit or we don't book for some reason, I will try and give them other recommendations. So I'll say like, thank you for considering me for this project. Here are some other photographers who are amazing who I would recommend. So I try and bring them some kind of positive experience from connecting with my business, even if we don't try and work together, or even if we don't end up working together. So next is at the photo shoot, ways that you can provide more value or just create an amazing client experience. So I go all out during my photo shoots. I try and like give as much little surprises and just things that are going to make my client have an amazing time. They're going to think back and be like, wow, that was so much fun. So things that I do is first of all, I provide the outfit, or I like to try and provide the outfit or offer guidance on picking an outfit. And this is actually a new thing that I've started doing, and I'll share my secret with you because I'm surprised more photographers don't do this. This is just something I started doing recently last year, and it's amazing. So I actually collaborate with local boutiques and businesses around my town. And basically, I have access to their entire inventory of clothes. I can go in and borrow any piece of clothing that I want, use it for a photo shoot, and return it afterwards for typically no charge. And in exchange, I just send them the photos and tag them on social media. To me, this is an amazing exchange. Now, I do have a contract in place where if I damage the clothes or ruin them in any kind of way, I will pay for them. I will either buy the piece of clothing or cover the amount of profit lost on it. And for me, this is just an amazing collaboration. I love this. I do this with like, I would say 5 local boutiques around me. And it's just great to be able to have outfits because first of all, this makes a better experience for my clients because I can borrow the outfit for a client photo shoot, and also it saves me a ton of money too because I can't even tell you how much money I've spent on clothes for photo shoots that I end up never using again just because I have like an idea in mind but not an outfit. So yeah, I basically just started going to local boutiques and asking if I could borrow some clothes in exchange for tagging them and sending them the photos. And I haven't had anybody say no to me. Usually everyone loves the idea. So, yeah, I recommend trying that out if that's something that sounds cool to you. The next thing I do besides providing an outfit is buying props. So I know some photographers who say that the props depend on the client, like it's up to the client to bring whatever props they want to use for the photo shoot, but I love to provide the props. I mean, I have a little bit of an advantage on this because my dad is a hoarder, and I mean this in the best way possible, but he has so many things. Like I have so many unique and just crazy things that I can use as props all the time. So usually I already have all the props that I'm going to want to use for a photo shoot, but I also will go out of my way to provide props for my clients, like baking cakes. I've actually been baking quite a few cakes lately, and this is just because this is something that I like to do. I find it fun and I do it just for fun. And I love taking pictures of cakes too. I feel like it just elevates the photo shoot so much more and it's so fun. So I don't charge my clients anything extra for a cake in their photo shoot. I'm not going to say that I never would charge them more because it does take a lot of time to bake a cake, but it's just something special that adds to the photo shoot. And then also flowers. I honestly probably buy a bouquet of flowers for every single photo shoot. I always buy flowers because they just elevate the photos, and who doesn't want a bouquet to take home after their photo shoot? I also will do like smoke bombs or confetti poppers. I love just little things like this that are just a surprise for the client. Like, I don't tell them about it. I'll usually just bring it out and then surprise them. And it always just leads to a better experience. And I've actually had so many people say to me, like, they'll say something like, I've never experienced a photo shoot like this, or I didn't know that photo shoots could be like this. And it's typically the parent who will say that to me at a senior session or something. She will just be blown away by how above and beyond I go. Um, Another thing that I forgot to mention is just like a Polaroid picture. If you have a Polaroid camera, just literally take one picture of your client and give it to them, and they find this so special. So that's another thing you can do. But when I get this kind of positive reaction from my clients, it actually motivates me to work harder and to keep going, to keep impressing my clients in this way because giving is energizing. So, after the photo shoot, some things you can do to continue making an amazing client experience and providing value are going to be to send your sneak peeks out quickly. Now, I can say I'm definitely guilty of not doing this. I'm so bad at sending sneak peeks. I hate sending sneak peeks. So, that's something I don't do very often, but if that's something that you feel like is doable for you, then that will improve your client experience. Next is giving extra photos. So I love to just include a few extra photos than more than I say that I will. And I don't deliver that many photos because I take a long time in my editing process. So I think my minimum package comes with like 10 photos. So it's really not that difficult to throw in like 5 extra photos and just surprise my client with a little extra. And then say you do get a client who loves their experience and they give you a raving review. So you've already started to build this amazing connection. They're already loving your business, love the photos, love the experience, and they leave you this amazing review. Well, don't stop the giving there. Because what you can do next is you can send them even just like a tiny gift, a small little thing to thank them. Maybe it's even like a 10% discount on their next photo shoot. Just give them something to show that you appreciate them. And this is really just going to build that bond even further. You're going to build the trust, the relationship, and you're going to create a super fan. You're going to create the kind of clients that go on to talk about your business for years and bring in new clients. So, doing these small but meaningful gestures will make your clients feel valued and it will create an experience that they can't stop talking about. So, that's what I had to say about providing value, being a giver in terms of when it comes to the client experience, ways that you can provide as much value as you can. Now we're going to dive into dealing with difficult clients. So, I'm going to share with you some personal stories that have happened to me, and we're going to talk about the different ways that I could have handled these situations from the perspective of a giver and a taker, and what the results of this might be. So, in my business, my client's happiness is my top priority. The client is always right. You've probably heard that quote. Like, I've heard it so much in my years of being a business owner, but it never truly hit home until I realized what it means to be a giver and what it means to make sure your clients are always happy, that they are always winning, because when your clients win, you win. If your clients aren't winning, you are not going to win. The success of your business is not going to win. So, I recently delivered this gallery, and the client sent me an email saying that they were not happy with the editing style. They were asking for a re-edit of the photos. And I was actually really happy with the photos. Like, I thought they were really good, and I was happy when I delivered this gallery. So I was a little bit shocked to see that they were not happy with the images. This is always difficult to hear, and my first reaction was to get mad or defensive because this is my editing style. The photos were very true to my portfolio, very true to how I normally edit my photos. As photographers or just creatives in general, we often pour our heart and soul into our work. And it can be really difficult to separate yourself from your work. And so when somebody says that they don't like your photos, it often feels like they're saying they don't like you. It's important to remember, though, that art is subjective and not everyone is going to like your work. So don't take it personally. This will also help you to better serve your clients when you separate yourself from your work, because a lot of the times they're right. They'll notice little things about themselves in the images that you missed, and it's really easy to get defensive and say, no, these pictures are beautiful. Like, I didn't miss anything, but it could be just like some blemishes on the face, or bringing the brightness up on the eyes, like maybe there's some shadows cast on the face, and I don't know, just little simple things like that that we could take the time to fix to make our photos better, which this isn't what happened in this situation. My client didn't like the color grading of the photos, which is what I'm talking about, so she wanted me to change the colors in all of the photos. And if I get a message like this and it makes me feel mad or sad, I often take some time before replying to this email so that I don't say something I regret, because I do get upset and I do get attached to my work. And so I also have to remember to just separate myself from my work. So in this situation, I have two options. I can say that I won't re-edit the pictures because it's very true to my portfolio and they hired me for my editing style. The result of this is going to be that I'm going to make my client feel mad. They're going to feel like this is unfair, like they paid me for these pictures and I said that my top priority is to make my clients happy, and they're unhappy. And so they're going to go and leave me a bad review. And then they're going to go and tell all their family and friends about how bad of a photographer I am and how difficult I am to work with. Having reviews and negative words about your business like this could have a significant impact on the reputation of your business, even if it's not true, because technically you did everything you were hired to do. Because in my contract, it says that the photographer has final say on the creative vision of the photos. So legally, I don't have to re-edit these photos, and I could feel justified because my contract says this. But the thing you need to think about is the kind of impact that's going to have if your client goes and says negative things about you or leaves you a negative review, and then someone else who wants to work with you later reads that review and that turns away future possible clients. So, option two is to take a little extra time that it's going to take you to re-edit the photos and just fix their problem and move on. Avoid damaging your reputation. And if you do this, this client might even go on to love your work and trust you and respect you for the way you handled their problem. So if you do go ahead and just fix their photos, they might go on and rave about how you went above and beyond to make sure they were happy. This is actually a proven fact that people who have had a bad experience with a brand, but the brand fixed it, are actually more loyal than customers who never had a problem in the first place. So if you fix a problem that arises with your client and you fix it smoothly and just think about how you can make them happy, then they are going to go on to love your brand and your business even more. So what I did take the second option. I took the time that it took to re-edit all 200 photos and my client was happy. When you get in a situation where you and your client have a little disagreement, try and think about it from your client's perspective. In this case, these photos that I had to re-edit, this photo shoot was for a brand who was launching a new product. And actually, after looking at this brand's social media, I realized that this brand had a very consistent edit through all their photos on social media. They had built this brand image to look a certain way. One of the girls working on this project with me had actually warned me that this might happen. She wasn't the main client, but she was like the assistant or the creative director to the client. And so we were working together on this project. And she told me about how this client had had problems with photographers in the past. She said there was this last photographer she worked with. She didn't like the way the photographer edited the photos, and she asked for a re-edit and the photographer didn't give it to her. And she told me about how upset this client was, and the client didn't even end up using the photos because they didn't match her brand and her vision for what she wanted for the photos. And so she just wasted all of that time and money she put into the photo shoot. And this was not a small photo shoot. This was like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. This was a long work day. So that is a lot of money and time to waste in a photo shoot. And I know personally that I would not be able to sleep if I made somebody feel like that, like have to go through that and have to redo the photo shoot with somebody else. It would just eat at me. Now, I know that there are some people who can never be pleased and people who just continue to complain and ask for more of you and they drain your energy. So, in this case, there is a third option that I haven't talked about, which is the matcher approach. And it's important as a giver to use the matcher approach when you feel that you're being taken advantage of. Luckily, this has never happened to me, but I would just give them a refund. If it was this big of a deal, I would just refund them to avoid the hassle and to also avoid a bad review. So even though in my contract it says that I don't have to give refunds, I would just give a refund and move on. Now, remember how I said that the benefits of being a giver are not obvious right away, because in this situation, you're going to feel sad, you're going to feel drained, taken advantage of, but the benefits of your success in the future are going to increase from this situation. Because when your clients win, you win. And this is actually a quote from the book. It says, "People who give more go on to earn more money." So you might not earn the money right away, you might even lose money, but in the future, if you approach your business with a giver mindset and giver approach, then you will go on to earn more money because of those positive connections and relationships that you will build with people. One of the best ways to actually deal with difficult clients is to stop it before it happens. I mentioned earlier that I took a look at my clients' social media and I noticed that their social media photos and editing was very different from my own style. So if I would have taken the time to look at this before booking with this client, then I could have talked to them about it before and I could have either said, "Your photos are different than how I typically edit. I don't think we're a good fit." And I would have avoided this scenario. Or I could have even said, do you want me to edit them in a certain way? And then I would have had avoided having to re-edit them if it was a project that I really wanted to do, which it was. I actually loved working on this project. It was super fun, and I wouldn't take it back. I loved doing it, even though I had to re-edit the photos to match what they wanted. I wouldn't undo it. So it's important to just get to know your clients before you book with them and figure out what they actually want from you. But of course, these clients didn't even tag me on Instagram when they post the photos, which it does say in my contract also that you need to tag me when you share the photos, but I didn't say anything to them because it's just really not worth it. But it's just something as a photographer that you're like, oh, I could have got more work from that. But in my opinion, it's not worth it to bring it up. Just let it go. Okay, I'm going to share a second story with you about a difficult client. Now, I wouldn't say this client was exactly difficult, but it was just a little bit of miscommunication. So here is how I handled it, and here's what could have happened if I handled it differently, I guess. Okay, so I got this client. She wanted some maternity pictures with her and her boyfriend at this specific location. She specifically said she wanted to go to this location for her photos. So I said, okay, let's meet there at this time. I get to the location at the set time, and it's a waterfall. It's very beautiful. It was kind of a little further out there than even I expected. I didn't know the road would be so bumpy and stuff, but it was a gorgeous location. So I'm waiting there for my clients to arrive, and waiting and waiting. I probably waited for like, I don't know, I want to say 30 to 45 minutes. I wasn't expecting it to be this bumpy or this far out here. So I was like, they're probably just running a little bit late because the road was a little bit rough. So I waited for them for a little bit, and then I thought maybe I'll turn around and try and catch them coming up, because of course there was no service at this location that we were meeting at. So I turned around and started driving back to try and like spot them on the road coming up. And I drove all the way back to the main road where I came into service. And I noticed that I had a bunch of missed calls and texts from my client, basically saying that they couldn't make it to the location because their car couldn't make it on the road. The road had been too rough for them. And I could have gotten upset at this because they chose the location. So I just assumed that they had been there before and that they knew what it was going to be like. So I assumed that it would be safe to meet at the location. And I could have even charged them for a rescheduling fee because they had turned around and went home. They did try and contact me and get there, but they just couldn't make it. So they waited around for a while too, and they eventually just went home. So I could have charged them like a rescheduling fee to do the photo shoot at a different date in a different location. But instead of doing that, I apologized and I said that it was all my fault, that I should have made the meeting location somewhere in service. And this is so true. I actually learned from this to never meet a client somewhere there is not service, especially if it's somewhere I've never been. So this was a good learning experience from me because this was my fault. But on top of saying that it was my fault and apologizing, I also upgraded their package from a silver photo package, which is my base minimum package, to a gold package, which includes just like more photos and an outfit change. And so I wanted to make this situation right and just fix their problem, which in turn led to a more loyal customer because of the way I handled the situation. Okay, this last story that we're going to go into is not my own. This is actually a situation that blew up on TikTok last week, I want to say. I seen it pop up on my For You page. So, this is between a bride and her photographer. The bride's name is Austin May on TikTok, and the photographer's name is Madison. So, basically, the bride posted a TikTok video roasting her photographer. She made a video saying, when you were so excited for your reception pictures, and this is what you got back. And then she showed some pictures from her reception that weren't very good. And She tagged the photographer in the video. And she also said that the photographer went against their contract. So, right away, of course, everyone's so mad that the photographer did this to the client. The comments are heated, all on the bride's side, feeling super bad for the bride. And this kind of video about a business can ruin a business, especially on TikTok with how viral these videos can go. It can absolutely ruin a business. So, this is a very serious situation. However, as the video started getting a lot of views, the truth started to come out. And eventually, somebody found the full wedding gallery from this photographer. And the gallery was stunning. I looked at the pictures too, and they are incredible. This is a very talented photographer, and the pictures that she delivered in this gallery looked nothing like what the bride had posted and said she got back. So, pretty much everyone started to realize that this bride was just trying to go viral. And by doing so, she was bashing this photographer who actually did a really good job. The photographer did come forward and make her own video sharing her side of the story, which I watched. And I think the bride did end up deleting the video because I never seen the original video from the bride, but I did watch the photographer's video and her side. And she said that in her video, she said, well, first of all, she continued to mention how sad and sorry she felt for the bride because she could not imagine loving your wedding photos. And so she wasn't even concerned about the impact it had on her. She just felt so bad for the bride for having wronged the bride, or the bride felt like she had wronged her. She said that she had lost sleep and shed lots of tears over the situation. And she said that she thought the situation had been handled offline before the bride posted the video. So the photographer had been communicating with the clients, and they technically had the situation handled. They had come to an agreement, and then the bride posted this video. The photographer said that she had offered multiple things to make the situation right. She had offered to re-edit the photos. She offered to give them the raw photos, which you definitely don't have to do because those belong to the photographer. And a lot of people will even charge money for the raw photos, but the photographer offered to give them the raw photos. And she also offered a refund, which, just a little side note, the photographer also said that the bride never contacted the photographer directly. The photographer was talking to the bride's parents. And so the photographer never even heard from the bride before the bride posted this awful video bashing the photographer. So, of course, when the photographer seen the video, she asked the bride to take it down, but it had already gained a lot of attraction before that happened. And I think it's because at first people were on the bride's side, and so the bride didn't want to take it down, but I think she took it down when people started to turn on her and they were on the photographer's side. I never actually had that confirmed. That's just my own superstition. But the takeaway from the story is that if the photographer wasn't so kind in dealing with the bride in this terrible situation, then it could have impacted her business negatively. If she tried to be a taker and she felt justified in her photos and she felt like she didn't owe the bride anything, then it wouldn't have turned out the same way for the photographer. But because she truly cared about her client's happiness above all else, this will bring her more clients and more booking in the future. This video, although it was very traumatizing and sad for her, probably has helped her business so much because she had so much positivity come from it, because people realized that she really didn't wrong the bride. She did everything she could, even if the pictures were bad, which they weren't bad. There were a few that were not that great, but even if they were bad, the photographer offered everything she could to make it better. And the other thing I want you to take away from this is to realize the power of matchers. People who want to keep the balance equal between takers and givers, because everyone in these comments were matchers. That's often why videos blow up, because somebody gets mad and they're trying to justify the situation. And these matchers also started making their own videos talking about the photographer and how amazing the photographer and how amazing the photographer is and how wronged she was by this bride. There are probably hundreds of videos talking about this photographer. And that's actually how I came across the video, was from another person talking about the photographer. I never actually seen the original video, but that's the power that matchers have. When you're a giver, matchers also want to give back to you. So, if you're a business owner, I highly recommend reading the book Give and Take. I learned so much from it, and I could honestly even go on to talk about more. One thing I do want to cover in a future episode is burnout, because this book did have some really interesting points on burnout. Because as a giver, as you can imagine, it might be difficult to not burn out when you're always giving so much of yourself, but that's not always the case, and typically you burn out not from giving, but just from giving in the wrong ways. So, I will probably do an episode about burnout in the future, and I hope you enjoyed this. Please reach out to me. Tell me your own stories. I love when you guys reach out to me. It honestly is what keeps me motivated. It keeps me feeling like I'm making some kind of impact with this podcast. So, I truly appreciate all of you who listen and tune in, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.